Welcome to the deep dive. We're living in a world where truth just feels, well, it feels like it changes depending on which platform you're scrolling through.
It's completely overwhelming. Authenticity is the goal, but it's also, the easiest thing in the world to fake.
Exactly. So today, instead of analyzing algorithms, we're going straight to the source material, the first, second, and third letters of John.
That's right. We're diving into some very ancient waters to solve a very modern problem.
Hmm.
John wrote these letters late in his life, and what the sources really stress is his unique
He
authority.
wasn't just a theorist.
Not at all. He was an eyewitness. He could say with total confidence that he had personally heard, saw, and touched Jesus. So his whole mission wasn't about new ideas. It was about deepening the certainty of believers who were being just shaken by really sophisticated deception.
The parallel is just startling. People today aren't just confused, they're being actively misled by these modern false teachers, claiming some kind of special secret knowledge.
And John just cuts through all of it. He says, forget the complex arguments. Here are three objective, practical ways to test if someone or something is genuine.
So that's our mission for this deep dive.
Precisely. To distill those three clear proofs, what the source material actually calls the cardinal tests of life
Okay.
that John gave his readers, it's a framework that I think holds up just as well today.
Okay, so let's set the stage. To understand the fight, we need to understand the enemy. Who was John actually battling back then?
The main intellectual adversary was a movement called Gnosticism, and it wasn't just a different flavor of Christianity, it was a philosophical error trying to create this sort of unnatural union between the faith and Greek dualism.
That dualism being the idea that the spiritual world and the material physical world are fundamentally opposed.
Exactly. The core belief, the foundational error, was that spirit is inherently good, pure, eternal. But matter, anything physical, is essentially evil, corrupt, temporary.
And if you start with that premise, everything about the Christian story starts to collapse.
It completely falls apart, especially the doctrine of Christ.
Because that raises a huge question. If matter is evil, how could a divine Christ possibly unite permanently with a physical, material man, Jesus?
The Gnostics solved that by just denying the incarnation as we know it. They claimed the divine Christ was simply too holy for any permanent contact with the human body.
So what was their version of the story?
They pointed to the heresy of a man named Cerinthus, who argued that the divine Christ figure descended on the man Jesus at his baptism. They called that the water.
Okay.
But then critically, he departed just before the crucifixion, before the blood.
So, the man Jesus died, but the divine Christ didn't suffer at all.
Yeah.
Wow, that just guts the entire story of the cross.
It completely does. The source material is very clear. If Christ didn't truly become man and didn't truly die, then the reconciliation, the payment for sin, it never happened.
And this dualistic belief, it must have had huge neural implications, too.
Oh, massive moral contradictions. If the body is evil and, ultimately doesn't matter, you fall into one of two extremes.
Right. The first is asceticism, despising the body, extreme self-denial, that sort of thing.
You can kind of see echoes of that today, a sort of hyper-spiritualized living that denies physical reality.
A great parallel. And the other path, which was maybe even more destructive, was libertinism.
The complete opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If what you do in the body doesn't affect your pure spirit, then morality doesn't matter. It leads straight to unbridled immorality.
So John wrote to defend the simple, tangible reality of Jesus, that he was visible, audible, touchable, and to give believers these practical tools to judge these very sophisticated reality-denying ideas.
And that brings us to the core of it all.
Yeah.
The three cardinal proofs.
Three tests. Let's lay them out. What's the first one?
The first is the theological test, and it's all about faith. The question is simple. Do they believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, truly incarnate?
So getting the facts right about who Jesus is. It's the gatekeeper. And John is adamant that this belief has to align with the original apostolic gospel. To deny the Son, he says, is to deny the Father. He even calls this the spirit of the Antichrist.
So if that foundation is wrong, the whole house is built on sand. Okay, so once the belief is correct, that brings us to the second test.
The second is the moral test, and this one is centered on obedience. The question here is, do they practice justice? Do they actually obey God's commandments?
So it's not just what you say you believe, it's how you live.
Right. True knowledge of God, the logos, and your ethical behavior, the ethos, have to walk together. The source material is really sharp here. It says being orthodox in the head, but a heretic in conduct is just a lie.
A contradiction.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the theological test, our faith in God, and the moral test, our personal integrity. What's the third one? The external proof.
That's the social test, which is centered on love. Do they genuinely love one another? This is the distinguishing mark.
The final apologetic, as the sources call it.
Exactly. If God's nature is light and love, then a lack of love is definitive proof of a lack of knowledge of God. You can pass the first test, but if you fail the moral or the social test, the whole thing is a failure. They have to interlock.
That link between the moral and social tests is fascinating. Let's dig deeper into the moral test first. God is light. What does John mean by that?
He means radical transparency. God's nature is revealed. There's no darkness in him at all. His identity and his activity are perfectly consistent.
So for his followers, walking in the light means living with that same kind of sincerity. Nothing to hide.
Absolutely. It's a life lived without secrecy, without any moral camouflage.
And John points out 3 specific lies the false teachers were using to try and, get out of this moral obligation.
Yes, 3 really clever bits of intellectual gymnastics. The first lie was an attempt to deceive others. They'd claimed communion with God while they were secretly walking in darkness.
So hypocrisy.
Pure hypocrisy. John calls it a consummated lie. A religious appearance without the internal morality is just an illusion.
Okay, that's lie number 1. The second one seems more internal.
It is. The second lie was deceiving themselves by claiming they had no sin. This goes right back to Gnosticism. They'd argue, oh, my flesh sins, but my pure spirit is untouched.
A convenient loophole.
A huge one. And John just dismisses it. He says denying your own sinfulness is self-deception. It just warps your reality.
And the third lie, that was the most serious.
By far. The third lie was making God a liar. If you deny that humans are sinful, you deny the whole reason Christ came. You're basically saying his sacrifice was this huge, unnecessary, historical event.
But the sources are clear. True believers aren't perfect. We fall short. So what happens if we sin? If it's an accident, not a lifestyle?
This is where the grace in the letter is just so profound. If a believer does sin, they have Jesus Christ, the just, as their advocate, their parakletos, next to the Father.
And that word parakletos, it means something like a helper or a defense attorney.
It means someone who stands beside you in court to help. But what's crucial is how Jesus defends us. He doesn't argue that we're innocent.
He can't. He's the just one.
Precisely. He accepts our guilt, but then he presents his own finished work, his sacrifice, as the basis for our forgiveness. And this leads right to the concept of propitiation.
Lesmos. That's a heavy theological term. Break that down for us.
Propitiation just means satisfaction. Christ's sacrifice satisfied God's just wrath against sin. Think of it like this. God is holy. He has to uphold his law, and sin demands a penalty.
Right.
Christ's death pays that penalty in full. It satisfies that demand, which allows God to forgive us without compromising his own justice.
So the advocate isn't saying let them off the hook. He's saying the price has already been paid in full by me.
Exactly. This is what makes God both faithful and just to forgive. His faithfulness keeps the promise, and his justice is satisfied because the penalty was paid.
And what's our part in this? What do we have to do?
Our part is confession. The Greek word homologio literally means to say the same thing.
To say the same thing about our sin that God does.
Yes, to admit specific guilt without making excuses, without justifications. It's just dropping all pretense.
That makes the moral test incredibly clear. So let's move to the social test, the proof of love. Why is this commandment considered new?
Well, it's not because the command to love didn't exist before. It's new because it introduces a totally new standard. We have to love as Christ loved us.
Which is a sacrificial, self-giving kind of love.
It's a love that prioritizes others even to the point of death. And John contrasts this with its complete opposite, hatred, using the story of Cain and Abel.
Cain is the prototype of hate.
Right. And the source material really digs into his motive. Cain didn't kill Abel because Abel was evil. He killed him because Abel's righteous actions were like a painful mirror to Cain's own wickedness.
Wow.
Hatred is so toxic that God says the internal attitude itself makes you a murderer in his eyes. It's the definitive sign that you're still in spiritual darkness.
And if love is the proof, John warns about the one thing that will kill it: loving the world system.
That's such a vital point to clarify. When he warns against loving the world, the cosmos, he doesn't mean the planet or humanity.
He means the system.
Yes,
Yeah.
the organized system of society that operates completely independent of God. It's the whole value structure of humanity that's hostile to him, with its own goals and priorities.
The entire infrastructure of culture that pulls our allegiance away from God.
That's a perfect way to put it. And he identifies three specific pillars of this world system, the three desires that make it so attractive.
Okay, what's the first one?
The lust of the flesh. These are the sordid desires that tempt us from within, the raw appeal of immediate physical pleasure, unchecked appetite.
And the second, the lust of the eyes.
This one attacks from the outside. It's being captivated by what you see, wealth, status, power, covetousness. It's the lie that happiness is in the things money can buy.
And the third pillar, the pride of life, the alazonia. This one feels especially relevant today.
It really is. That Greek word, alazonia, it means boasting, self-promotion, arrogance. It's the attitude of a charlatan, someone who wants to impress everyone with their fictitious importance.
Loving the spotlights.
Loving the spotlights, the performance, the praise. It's pure self-glorification.
When you think about social media, that desire for unearned or inflated importance, that alazonia, that's the engine driving so much of the world system's influence.
It's the ancient version of building your personal brand on nothing. And John gives one ultimate, undeniable reason to reject this whole system. It's temporary. It's all passing away. The world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, it literally has no future.
The source material had that incredible story about John D. Rockefeller.
A powerful example. When he died, someone supposedly asked his accountant how much he left. And the reply was, he left everything. He didn't take a single cent.
What a contrast. The system we give our lives to is dissolving, but the one who follows God's will remains forever.
Investing in the world is, as you said before, a terrible business. It defines your life by what cannot last.
John makes these tests so tangible in his third letter with 3 case studies of real people.
Yes, 3 men who show us what this looks like. First, you have Gaius, the exemplar. He was walking in truth and love, and his proof was his generous, faithful hospitality, his philoxenia, or love for strangers.
He supported traveling ministers.
He supported them in a manner worthy of God, and in doing so, he became a cooperator of the truth. His actions backed up his beliefs.
Now contrast him with the second man, Diotrephes, the arrogant obstacle.
Diotrephes is a spectacular moral failure. He fails the moral and social test because he was consumed by ego. John says he loves to have the preeminence.
He just had to be number one.
Had to be. His issue wasn't bad doctrine, it was that pride of life. It was moral egoism.
He sounds like a spiritual dictator.
Absolutely. He practiced the abuse of authority, he slandered John himself, and he was actively unloving. He refused to welcome the delegates sent by the apostles.
And he didn't stop there.
No. He used his power to expel church members who did show them hospitality. He literally weaponized love and fellowship for political gain.
So Diotrephes proves that even if your theology is technically correct, it's meaningless if it's paired with that pride and hatred.
It's a total failure. And then finally we have Demetrius, the model. A quiet, reliable man known for good works who had a good testimony from everyone, including, as John says, the very truth itself. He's the one held up as worthy of imitation.
This has been such a profound deep dive, using these ancient texts to diagnose the exact problem we face today. How do you separate the genuine from the fake? What's the final synthesis we should take away?
The 3 tests are still the essential framework. To know you are of God, you need that convergence of all 3. Faith, the theological test, to make sure you're holding to the historical reality of Jesus.
Obedience, the moral test, to make sure your conduct aligns with that truth.
And love, the social test, to ensure that sacrificial care for others is your defining external mark.
The conflict John faced between simple historical reality and these complicated, self-serving new revelations is just raging today. You see it in unsubstantiated claims that promise status or power, mirroring that old Gnostic pursuit of secret knowledge.
Vigilance is so necessary because, as John warns, the world is full of many deceivers. The source material closes that point so powerfully, saying that those who love the world system are basically delivering their lives over to something that literally has no future.
And if the true Christian life is about sacrificial love and eternal purpose, that leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to end on.
It does. If we chase success as the world defines it, Or if we strive for that modern alazonia, that self-important boasting about our status and performance, how might that ambition be a subtle betrayal of Christ's simple, obedient, sacrificial life?
Are we essentially becoming modern spiritual dualists who care more about our brand than our brother?
Something to explore further on your own as you discern what's genuine and what is just pretense.
That was the deep dive.